We can't comment on exchange. Funny, so a lot of people just want to look. As many smart contracts as you want, we're here today with Deep from EY, and we're going to talk about a good bunch of things around blockchain and what he's doing in the space. So you want to give us a quick intro on
Sure. Yeah, nice to see
background
you,
and
Joe.
what you're doing? Yes.
So just before we get started, I just want to kind of outline that, the views that I share are my personal views and my experiences. So happy to have the conversation with Joe and with you guys and share based on my experience and discussions with my clients where we think blockchain technology is going. So just by way of introduction, I'm a principal within EY based out of Los Angeles. I'm in the advisory service line, and I focus primarily on helping our clients improve their process efficiency and effectiveness. And over the last few years, I've been focusing on looking at emerging technologies and looking at those emerging technologies to overcome some of the challenges that our clients are having. So that's my primary focus. I'm glad to be here and catching up with you, Joe.
Excellent. Yes. So, what are the common issues that you tend to see when talking to clients, particularly around blockchain?
Sure. So I work predominantly in a finance space, so focusing the CFO agenda. And our approach and what I really emphasize is a process-led approach, right? Looking at the process first and seeing how you can drive more efficiency and effectiveness in that process. And if there are certain challenges that our clients face, they normally would bring them up, and we'll look at again reimagining the process using technology as an enabler. And in the past, there's been traditional technologies like ERPs and others, but with the emergence of blockchain, AI, and ML, we are looking at those emerging technologies to see what are the additional challenges that could be overcome by leveraging those technologies. And predominantly, blockchain is used where there is multiple parties involved. There is a lack of trust and transparency. Where your traditional technology stack may not be very helpful, that's where we trying to help our clients to look at blockchain as an enabler.
Right. Very good. And given that adoption is always kind of key on everybody in the minds in blockchain, what are the general challenges that you see with adoption inside of enterprise?
Yeah, I mean, there were a few. When we started a couple of years back, there was a lot of education, and I would say there is still a lot of education and awareness around blockchain. People still get confused with cryptocurrencies, Bitcoin, and all the rest of it,
Right.
and the underlying technology. So there is still a little bit of that awareness that's still going on. Once that awareness is kind of addressed and people really see the potential of blockchain, there are some kind of preconceived ideas around scalability and others. I think blockchain has evolved and the scalability is kind of no longer that much of an issue as it was when it originated a while back. I think there's a lot of advances in that area that's already been made. So I think those challenges are overcome once you kind of walk the clients through some of the recent developments in those areas. So scalability, security, those were the general concerns that the clients normally had. And through education and awareness, I think those are now being addressed. The biggest challenge is, again, when you have to give them live examples of other enterprises using blockchain technology. There has been a lot of POCs and pilots, very much done by kind of one client, not really
Right.
a consortium or industry that's all fully operational and being used as the official book of record, right? So that still is something that's being developed.
Right. That's a big one. I mean, education
Yeah.
it has been and still is really big, even for us. So how do you tackle it? How do you approach the challenges that are there? Beyond education. And since you don't have the examples, what do you?
Yeah. So there's a lot of effort by our team still being done towards research and development. So we actively kind of contribute to open source platforms to share some of our learnings. Recently, I mean, EY announced how to actually transact in a safe and secure manner using public Ethereum network. Right. So
Cool.
things like that, we are still researching to make sure that scalability question and interoperability questions are being addressed. So that
Right.
still is a bit of a challenge. And you're helping clients by picking up a particular use case and walking them through the use case end to end to show the art of the possible using blockchain technology.
To put in the legwork. That's good.
Yeah.
Okay, good. How about use cases? Any use cases? I mean, I guess particularly in process, as you'd said, if that's the focus.
Yeah.
I mean, because we have a lot of interest there as well from our past, and I'd like to see what you guys see generically, across.
Yeah.
And what you can share, right?
Yeah,
I mean, I know you can't
for
share
sure.
everything. So.
I think a few of the examples I'm going to share are already in kind of public domain, and people have access to that information. So these clients that we're working with are already out, and we are making good progress in this. So one of the examples is the lack of trust and transparency that's associated with royalties payments. Right. So we are working very closely with Microsoft and the Xbox division to provide greater transparency into how the royalties are being calculated and how much royalties are being earned. And that in turn reduces the time that's needed to perform unnecessary reconciliations and audits because you are now giving them access to the transactional data and the calculation logic that's being used to calculate your royalties. And it also expedites, from the partner perspective, the visibility that they have into the statement. So they don't have to wait for end of the month or 45, 60 days to get the statement. They can actually see the transactions being ingested in near real time. And from that, they can derive what the calculation logic is and also determine how much they're going to get paid. So as a CFO for those companies that are receiving royalty payments, they no longer have to do an accrual. They can actually do an accrual on daily basis if they want to, based on the transaction ingestion, right? Nice. So it improves the performance overall and helps both, Microsoft and its partners to kind of drive a greater trust in the ecosystem, right? And where you avoid unnecessary non-value add activities and focus really partnering with the business.
Right.
So that's one example of the use case. The other one is the maritime insurance, where we worked with Maersk and Guardtime to build an insurance solution which expedites the claim time that's being used to process anything that's shipped through marine logistics. So that again is a great solution that we built. It's out there. Outside of that, there are a number of use cases in supply chain area in particular,
right,
where you talk about track and trace, or where you have contract manufacturers and partners, and you have inventory and good movements across the value chain, and you want to have that visibility end to end. So it's much more easier to use blockchain solution to provide that end to end visibility rather than the silo ERP or ecosystems that you have and getting data transferred over. Right. So all of those are fairly good use cases. We're doing some work around personal identity management as well, and creating the identity management profile and tokenization of that as well.
Okay, nice, very good. Okay, yeah, that's more and more important every day. So okay, great. How about what's the ideal blockchain platform? For what you see and in your space and how things fit. What are at least the capabilities or the features of a platform, which are most important, right?
Right. If I look at it from a particular client perspective, right? So as a one client, I would see blockchain architect very similar to the way you have your cloud architect, right? Where you have your private cloud and public cloud. In a similar way, you would see, your blockchain networks evolve just from your private permissible networks to being private permissible and public blockchain networks.
Right.
And that shift will happen gradually.
Mm-hmm.
And I think over time, we'll see more and more companies leveraging public networks,
Mm-hmm.
but you'll still have a core capability around private networks.
Oh, yeah.
And once you are in the public network, and I think the challenges over there are going to be around interoperability, right? When you have different protocols being leveraged, how do you
Mm-hmm.
reconcile across those protocols? The token movement, how would that work
Mm-hmm.
across different networks? So I think those interoperability challenges would need to be addressed, but ideally you want to have, an architecture that is able to transfer and get access of information across different protocols.
Mm-hmm.
And from an enterprise perspective, you're leveraging both your private blockchain networks and public networks.
Right. We agree. That's great. How about
great minds think alike?
Yes, exactly. There you go. So in the coming, year, reasonable short term, what would you think we should see? What are the things that people should be paying attention to in blockchain in the coming year or so?
I think a couple of things, right? First, I would hope that we will see a real live example of multi-enterprise using a blockchain network. But that, I mean, like it could be an industry silo where
Mm-hmm.
you have all the peers leveraging the power of the community
Mm-hmm.
through blockchain network and driving better customer experience, either B2B or B2C, and also improving their own enterprise efficiency.
Right.
using blockchain technology. I think
Right.
they're equally important. So I would see that. The second thing I would see over the coming year is some guardrails. And I think that is going to be important to have some guardrails. I know
Right.
it's completely against the notions of blockchain where you have a decentralized authority, but some guardrails around the usage of tokenization, the usage of certain protocols. And that would help in scalability and getting multiple enterprises to come and play in the same sandbox. And I think that's been a bit of a challenge.
Right. Yeah. If they could get some clear rules in place, if they could be wide, they could be narrow, but
Right.
that's
Just at a
totally
high level
missing right
guidelines,
now.
I think would be very helpful.
And if you're working with a project that's in a different place in the world, it's all the rules. It's crazy. So I understand. It makes total sense. On the process improvement, have you seen or have any notion of internal incentives where it would be tokenization, but not in a way that crypto Twitter would consider tokenization? It would be an internal controlled token, but to tune process inside of an enterprise, inside of an organization. Have you seen anything in that area?
Yeah. Most of the companies generally, when we start having discussions, they're looking at internal processes, right? And considering my focus is in finance, one of the biggest challenges that we have in finance is around intercompany, where a multinational company has set up loads of legal entities,
Right.
and it's basically not really a revenue generating exercise, but it's important to get those entities reconciled in order to close your books.
Right.
So the intercompany example is generally, where we've had a number of clients kind of express their challenge to overcome them, and using blockchain as a solution has been very helpful. And that's been a good starting point from finance perspective. We have had discussions with some of the clients where they're looking at personal credentials of employees, right? So using learning and development, so all the training courses, the CPE requirements that some of the accounting firms have for the employees, using blockchain as an enabler to track which trainings they've been to, and also validating those, I think, is another example that we've seen in some of the clients, again, using private permissible networks.
Right.
So those two come to mind straight away. And there are a few others when you start looking at supply chain, and if companies are using contract manufacturers or different geographies where there is mandatory requirements around shipment of goods from certain geographies and validation from trade compliance perspective.
Yes.
That's again another use case example that we've used.
Perfect. Wow. All right. That's all I have. Do you have anything? You
You could go on
Yeah, we
till
could-
cows
we
come
could-
home, but
yes,
yeah,
I think we're
in the
so-
interest of time,
Yes.
we should wrap.
Well, thank you. Thanks for
Yeah.
thanks for hanging out.
Yeah, no, nice to
And,
see you again, Jack.
Hello. So another episode of Super Happy. Thanks for tuning in. I have at least a bunch of things to go over for events coming up and things that you'll see on the show. First off, we're going to have a series of webinars focused mostly on enterprise use cases, supply chain, IoT, but also some that might be a little bit technical with a business angle on blockchain scaling and things like that, where we can actually highlight demos, but to a business audience. So that will be exciting. Those should be starting middle of November. We're about to reopen the beta on Den, and we'll probably bring in the same people, probably add some more, so be on the lookout for the invite forms and things like this. It's really exciting because we took everything that we had learned in the months preceding and are refactoring a bunch of pieces to make it, of course, mobile friendly, and to focus on some of the look, feel, some of the usability, and then also working on the scaling. So when we open it up to everyone, all of the various parts of the system will be able to handle any amount of traffic. And that's again, it's very. There will be a lot of transactions in there because everything is on chain. So that'll be nice. We also have updates on scale, hopefully coming. We have we're working on a couple of partnerships there. I'm hoping we meet the end of year deadline, and we'll see. But some really cool stuff happening, and good people involved. We also have a few interchains on the way. Mostly they're in place, but we have to do the final integrations, and we have to decide on a couple of things for just on the DevOps side to make everything clean and simple and maintainable, so it doesn't take too much of our time. And we'll probably have announcements as those roll out. Really exciting, something that I'm looking forward to is a metrics page. Because right now it's a manual process where I or someone else goes to engineering and requests metrics, and they do the necessary queries, and we throw them out there. But what I want is to have metrics about nodes, about transactions, about time, about distribution of time, about average fee. About total fees, anything you can think of. I want to get in there and make it near live, or at least in a scalable way, as live as it can be for everyone, pretty much hourly updates. And that'll be on a public page, and it'll also help us inside the console to get more valuable metrics for your own nodes as well, right? So two things there. It's pretty neat. Another thing is we're going to try to put a little bit more focus on strategic bounties. So if anyone has any questions there or other ideas, let us know. We're thinking about using some of the capabilities of scale that have already been built to improve that, so that we could actually have ideas coming from the outside, and then we or anybody could actually put bounties on the creation of those projects. So that'll be really neat. And I know that even I've been trying to get time the past couple of days to get together with the team to get a couple more of the projects a little more fleshed out in the documentation requirements. So that'll be coming. And so far we've already actually had a couple of takers, a couple of people that are starting to work on things, and we've actually picked up a couple internally as well. So that's good effect. We've also had our first, I think it's 2, but it might be 3, on the bug bounty side, where people are reporting bugs, finding bugs, and I don't know where the process is on that, but it's actually working. The system's working, so it's really good. For upcoming events, we have a team is going on a trade mission to Singapore from Netherlands. So it's actually the Netherlands Dragonchain that is going to be participating in a full trade mission there in the middle of November. That'll be really exciting. Lots of good companies on both sides to interact with, and hopefully do business. We also have Seattle GNU Linux. It's an open source conference in Seattle where focuses on all things open source. I spoke there way back when I was at Disney. I can't remember what year it was. And I'm going to give a talk, and we'll have a booth there. Focus of what we're going to talk about is open sourcing a project from inside of a large enterprise. So that'll be pretty interesting. We might expose some info there. We also have a couple of things coming up where we're going to be doing the meetups. I think we're going to move them to monthly so we can get speakers, and so that we might be able to align them with some of our internal talks, and maybe most of you will be interested expose some information about the history of Dragonchain and things like that. So that'll be fun. The only thing I have left is next week. We're having Danny's doing a pretty in-depth, pretty long demo on business nodes and smart contracts to kind of get I guess an introduction into that. If we don't have the metrics page out by then, which it'd be awesome if it is, but if it isn't, I'm going to try to start dishing out the metrics on the show here. It'll either be a part of the live segment or it'll be pre-recorded. I don't know yet, but that way at least we'll get weekly metrics out. And we're also going to do something with more information on the docu-series, and in particularly the naming. We're going to do something where we'll have a contest or a way for the community to name that show. So that's everything I have. Thanks so much.